I'm Marvin the paranoid android, and the answer to life, the universe, and everything is Hot Wampa, episode 42. I don't know why you'll listen now. It's all boring.
Hello, Hot Wampa, episode 42. We have caught up with my age now.
Yeah, I'm not 42 for another few months, but, it certainly feels like we've grown as a podcast as well as humans.
You're not far behind me, are you?
I'm not, no. August, so.
Yeah. Not too much, really, to kick us off with. A little bit in housekeeping. Cue the music. Okay, Feel the Force Day 2017, which will be staged at Kingsgate Conference Centre in Peterborough on the 30th of September this year, currently has an appeal out for Hot Wheels toys. Right, the organisers of Feel the Force Day have posted via their social media the following, and I quote, "Please be on the lookout for Hot Wheels, film and TV related cars in your local pound shops. We really need some for our sensory touch tables. So if you see any, please grab them. TV and film cars is something we haven't really touched much on, so spread the word. Even if you have any at home knocking about, they don't have to be new or boxed or in great condition. I've offered on behalf of Hot Wampa to mention their appeal during the show, which obviously I have done. If any of our listeners would like to donate any no longer used Hot Wheel cars that depict cars used in film and TV, then please get in touch with the organisers of the Feel the Force Day convention. I will provide the link to the Feel the Force Day website in the metadata for this podcast." So I figured we would give them that little bit of assistance.
That's good, yeah.
If anyone's in a position to assist the organisers of Feel the Force Day with this request and elects to do so, get in touch with us here at Hot Wampa and we'll give you a shout out on the show. So yeah, basically Feel the Force Day as a science fiction, TV, fantasy convention, it caters to people with disabilities and various disabilities, including people that are blind or visually impaired. And they have sensory touch tables in which they have various toys or replica props which are used in which depict things that are used in TV and film, vehicles, weapons, helmets, armor, that kind of thing, so that people that can't actually see these items can at least hold them and get an idea of the shape of these items and try to form a mental picture. And that's really what they want any used Hot Wheel cars for, so that people can have that experience. So if anyone's got any Hot Wheel toy cars from TV and film or themed around TV and film that they no longer want, get in touch with the organisers of Feel the Force Day, please.
Yeah, it's a nice appeal there, Dave, because we had a great day last year, didn't we? So,
yeah,
it was good to meet people, definitely.
Yeah, they've put their prices up now. It's £4 a ticket.
Have they? Well, it's still a bargain.
It's an absolute bargain, isn't it? It's a great day out for what you pay.
And we were quite close to the celebrities there. And had some good views and sort of tiered seating. I guess it's like a lecture theatre, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what obviously we got to speak to Mr. Chris Bunn.
The famous Chris Bunn.
Yeah, Miss Peterborough. They were all over the place. I've also got in my housekeeping notes, acknowledge and discuss the large amount of activity we seem to be getting in the Indian subcontinent area.
Yeah, that's true.
It's not just that you've said it on Facebook posts and social media posts. Well, I was having a look at the feed this morning at some of the demographics, and we do seem to be getting a bit of a spike in around that sort of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, that kind of Indian subcontinent region at the moment. So, I don't know quite how we've reached them. Do you?
Well, we did a couple of Facebook post boosts. And,
yeah.
We, mostly I've been targeting North America and a couple of European countries, South Africa, that kind of demographic. But we've had more and more people from Sri Lanka and Pakistan and India liking the podcast. And, you're welcome. So, come along and have a listen.
Yeah, I'm just amazed that your advertising posts have actually managed to hit the continent that you didn't aim them at. You're only a few thousand miles out there, mate.
It is bizarre. I have commented on a few Facebook groups just saying that what's going on with the the audience participation. How can you target certain groups? My friend Chris mentioned that Denmark is a really big podcast listening nation, so we targeted them, but we have had nothing from Denmark. So it just goes to show it's pot luck, I guess.
I think it is. So, yeah, any new listeners that have come to us from that part of the world, welcome on board. We're glad to have you, really. Just like we say to anyone else, please don't be scared to comment or share posts or discuss things that we discuss with us. We're accessible, hot.wampa@yahoo.co.uk for emails. I think anything to do with the show, we'd much rather it went there as opposed to us as individuals. And welcome aboard, really.
The mothership is filling up, really.
Yeah. That's all I've really got personally for housekeeping. I don't know if you want to add anything.
I've just had a bit of feedback from people about the Star Wars figure special interview with Guy Trussell. I think it did stir a bit of imagination, and lots of people have been messaging me about their own collections and things like that. We suggested maybe having a Christmas special about the special gifts that people have received down the years that they remember from the Star Wars universe. So hopefully we can do something like that in November, December, Dave, if that's okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we have to structure a show, but I'm game for that. Yeah, why not? That's something else I looked at this morning was in the feed. The download figures for that episode are also quite good. They're higher than a standard one. So I guess it has perhaps twigged a few people's imaginations or appetites when it comes to collecting. I mean, we also posted it in various Star Wars groups as well. So hopefully that's helped to pick up a few people to the Hot Wampa listenership. One note I did mean to mention, my Richard Hatch special, that's also done fairly well in downloads. And that's a 2-part thing. I've actually recorded and mixed and done and everything, the second part to that Richard Hatch special. And that will be going into the feed after this, the main episode has, to close off March's feed. So that should be available for download at some point within the next week. And if you're listening to this, then I'll be uploading it to the feed on the back of this episode. So, if you're listening to this, it might be worthwhile going back to the feed and seeing if it's there, because it could possibly be there. Basically, I'm just, seeing how much feed space we've got left after recording this and submitting this episode to the feed. That then dictates to me what bit rate I can render the MP3 at, and therefore the quality. And we like to use up every ounce of our feed if possible. And if we can improve the quality in that process, we will do.
Yeah.
So basically, once this episode's out, if you're listening to us now, there's a good chance that the second part of my 2-part Richard Hatch tribute will be out, or it will be out imminently.
That's good news, Dave. It's about time Sci-Fi replayed some of the classic Battlestar Galactica episodes, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the DVD box set, so, I mean, I tend to go back to it as I want to, but it does get syndicated runs. I was watching old episodes the other night on YouTube of Galactica 1980. Someone's gone and uploaded them on there. How long they'll be on there before they get taken down isn't anyone's business.
Yeah.
It's awful, but there you go. It was a bit of a fanboy moment going back and watching it. But yeah. Yeah, that's about it, really. Unless you got anything else you want to add for housekeeping?
No, I think, I'm happy about how things are going at the moment. I think we got a lot of new listeners.
Yeah.
What with Joseph commenting quite a lot recently, as well as our regular commentators on the podcast. So thumbs up, and it's been a good spring so far.
What was Guy's reaction to the Go Figure special that we did?
Well, I met him in the Station Tavern in Cambridge on Friday night. Actually, it was just by chance, but he was chuffed, and he said anything else I can do in the future if I can get involved. He was really happy. He said he sounded a bit nervous when he was recording the interview, but I think we all remember those first episodes when we probably felt the same. So.
Yeah, I think we now suffer from a stage where we sound like we're going to fall asleep when we record, as opposed to we're way too relaxed.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that was great to be able to get Guy on board for that special. And certainly, I mean, if we can do something in future with Guy, that's something I think we look forward to and like to do. So, yeah. Okay, let's move on to some Star Wars stuff then.
Okay.
This one's from makingstarwars.net, dated March the 9th, 2017, via their editor-in-chief, Jason Ward. It goes on to say, a tiny but fun tidbit about Captain Phasma's new weapon in Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, on from that, it goes on to say, please do not share the details of this article openly on social media and spoil Star Wars Episode 8 for those that want to remain spoiler-free. These are very general spoilers, but let's respect everyone's wishes and not spoil those that do not appreciate spoilers like us. Be cool. But then they went and published the article anyway. So, I mean, where do you go? But I suppose we really should give the same disclaimer that we're talking... And this isn't necessarily gospel. This is another one of them anonymous source type stories, yeah? So we don't know how credible this is, but if it is credible, it's potential spoiler. It's not major spoiler. It's not going to ruin someone's enjoyment of the story or what happens or, you know, the revelation they find out that Snoke is actually Yarick or anything like that. But it's a minor spoiler, so we will give that disclaimer to start with.
That'd be sensational if that was true.
It's got to be true. Today I have a tiny tidbit for you guys. I wish it was meatier, but I know how excited many of you are for Captain Phasma's return in Star Wars The Last Jedi. The tidbit pertains to a weapon Captain Phasma has. The question I have pertains to the weapon being ornamental versus something she actually fights with in the film. Jason Ward goes on to say, recently I was talking to a source and at the last moment they dropped this on me. You are going to love Captain Phasma's spear in The Last Jedi. She looks killer. I asked for elaboration, as in was it a spear or a sphere? In other words, either a stick or a circle. And I was told it was a weapon, a staff, and talk soon. So hopefully we get some elaboration sooner rather than later. Now, in Star Wars The Force Awakens, they gave Phasma an awesome gun, which didn't amount to much as far as action. It would be sort of strange to give her a spear, and once again just let her stand around with it. But at the same time, with the stuff I've heard about the new royal guards that stand beside Snoke, it isn't entirely out of the question that she has something ornamental like that for her First Order rituals and duties. That said, I hope she uses the weapon in combat. I want to see her fight with it as it could be so cool. This is a vague one that makes the imagination work overtime. At least it does for me. I hope you find it fun. Phasma's spear, Mark.
Well,
what did we think?
I was a bit underwhelmed by Phasma in Force Awakens, to be honest. I was expecting a bit more badass, you know, a proper strong character. But we did see a few melee weapons used in The Force Awakens by stormtroopers, didn't we? So perhaps they are trained in that.
We have to assume so, and we also see Finn fight the stormtrooper that calls him a traitor with a lightsaber, and whilst he's not specifically lightsaber trained, perhaps some form of melee weapon training could apply for any sort of laceration weapon as such. I don't know. But he certainly did seem to exhibit a degree of skill. Phasma with a spear. I think the look of Phasma holding some sort of staff or spear, sort of vertically upright in a hand, wouldn't look too far out, actually. I think it would suit that armour and that costume.
Yeah, it'd definitely be like a gladiator sort of.
Yeah, like sort of shiny chrome and the plates and the sort of general shape and outline of the helmet. I don't think it would look too far out. Gwendolyn Christie is also a very physically intimidating human being. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do we feel a little bit underwhelmed by her performance in The Force Awakens as the result of her performance in Game of Thrones? I mean, is she quite a physical and active character in a Game of Thrones?
Oh, she's fantastic in Game of Thrones. Yeah, Brianna Tarth she plays. She's physically a good fighter, a good negotiator, but a very loyal sort of subject to the king and later other people in the series. So, but if you were offered a role in any Star Wars film, you would take it with both hands, wouldn't you? So, I guess she was told she probably wouldn't be, one of the main characters, but definitely an intimidating one until she gets shoved down a trash compactor.
Well, somebody obviously takes her out. I mean, they obviously get Dino Rod in or someone, and they get Phasma out of the trash compactor.
Maybe they got out with a spear, and she grabbed hold of it and thought, "Hang on, this is a good weapon.
This is mint." Yeah, I mean, with there's some discussion here as well about the new royal guards that stand beside Snoke. I mean, I assume that this possibly could be some sort of variation of the royal guards we saw guarding Palpatine, and those guys, I mean, I think whilst it was officially titled a Force Pike, were armed with some form of spear, weren't they?
Yeah.
Even the action figure was like as Guy would probably tell us, like a long grey spear. I believe there is a deleted scene in Return of the Jedi when the Imperial officer who's in command of the construction or finishing off of the Death Star goes to see Emperor Palpatine, and one of those royal guards in the red robes actually deters him or engages him with that spear. So I think that was not cut from the final edit, obviously, but I think there is a scene out there that depicts that. I mean, maybe our listeners can inform us more about that. But yeah, I mean, it looks very much like Gwendolyn Christie is going to get some sort of melee weapon, and perhaps, I don't know, perhaps they feel like she's the sort of actress that would suit a sort of physical fight as opposed to an open firefight with some sort of replica firearm. Perhaps they think that, perhaps this could be Gwendolyn Christie / Phasma's moment to shine as such.
Well, she does shine in that chrome, especially after they polished it after the trash compactor, I'm sure.
I bet that took some brasso.
I bet she had to put some Harpic on it after what she'd been through. Well, what do you think about Phasma versus Finn? Do you think that would be a good team, like 1 against 1?
You think so? You think there's a bit of, in The Force Awakens, that sort of banter and that, well, not banter, was it? But, really digging into each other, that sort of the exchange between the two, as it were. Do you think they've got a bit of an issue to settle, and they might get settled that way? Yeah,
I reckon that could happen. There's got to be some plans that need to be stolen from somewhere.
Yeah, there's got to be something that's going to put them in proximity to each other again, isn't there?
Sorry, mate. It was interesting to read Mark Hamill's comment on Twitter this week. He wished John Boyega a happy birthday. And he said he's a real badass because he's the only guy I know who could weld a lightsaber without any kind of training. So it's nice. And he seems a nice guy, doesn't he, John Boyega? So.
Yeah, London boy, mate. Never underestimate them.
So what have I got? Star Wars hopes to stop using the legacy or relying on the old legacy characters. Basically what it is, somebody... Who is it? Gary Whitta. He's spoken to Superhero Hype, and he said, whatever kind of Star Wars films they're making 10 or 20 years from now, I don't think they're going to be relying on the same legacy story elements as we have had in the past. One of the things we really want to do at Lucasfilm is create a universe and not keep relying on old legacy characters. So, I mean, we love the characters, don't we? And we like to see them coming back. But I mean, with people like Darth Vader, he can keep coming back, can't he? If we look at older stories, it doesn't need to have a solid actor underneath the mask. We don't really need to know, do we?
Or Chewie, even. I mean, they established in the original trilogy that he was 700 years old. So what is the life expectancy of a Wookiee?
Who knows?
He might only be middle-aged at 700 years. We don't know. I mean, if you look at what is now called, quote, legends, which I still don't agree with personally, but that's where it's gone, the old expanded universe. And you had the whole thing like Knights of the Old Republic, which was set thousands of years before the prequels. I mean, we're not just talking about a generation or two, we're talking a significant time before them. There was this whole sort of culture of Star Wars and separate stories and everything that kind of grew up all around that, Revan and the Sith and all the rest of it. A lot of people like it and it's good. And that's kind of stood on its own without reference to any of the sort of traditional legacy characters. So I don't see why Star Wars can't exist and move on from those legacy characters. Like you say, characters like Vader or Chewbacca, timeless, because basically it's whoever you put in the suit. And I think it's fine to bring those, or the droids even, I think it's fine to bring those characters back in a fanboy nod kind of way. And we are seeing fanboy nods quite a bit now in Star Wars. That the character isn't back. Like Vader's role in Rogue One was nowhere near as deep or extensive as it was in the original trilogy. And, but it was still great to have him in those key scenes when we got to see him in action or when we got to see Krennic come and visit him, etc., etc. So I think you can bring those legacy character backs for those sort of fanboy moments, for those nods, as it were, but not necessarily as a major character in the film. I think it's right to move on to new characters like they have done with Finn and Rey and so on.
Yeah. And Gary Whitta goes on to say it's totally possible that in time, many of the new characters being introduced, such as the Knights of Ren, Guardians of the Wills, and Saw Gerrera, will be popular enough to warrant their own spin-off films. Or possibly a movie with exclusively new characters, vehicles, and planets could spring from the mind of a gifted filmmaker looking to reshape the brand. It makes sense to use familiar characters to transition into a bolder vision, he said, but eventually the filmmakers will have to shift the paradigm in order to keep audiences excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, you can't keep going back to the same cast. I mean, in episode 7, it was kind of we got introduced to new characters. But it was still like the old characters in a legacy sense, with terms of Leia. Harrison Ford as Han Solo, obviously in his swan song for Star Wars, had quite a big role in the film. Still, he was almost the guide through the film. Mark Hamill with the, smallest piece in any film in history, I think, right at the end there. Vader had more of a role in Rogue One than Mark Hamill had in The Force Awakens, let's face it. But obviously, Mark Hamill is going to have probably a much more extensive role in fighting Supreme Leader Yarick or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's okay to use them in terms of a nod when they can do. I mean, I love the nods in Rogue One. There was obviously a lot of fanboys involved in the production. We got to see the Ghost from Star Wars Rebels as part of the Rebel fleet attacking Scarif. It was also on the landing pad at Yavin 4. Another nod there was General Syndulla. Well, Hera Syndulla is the owner of the Ghost, captain of the Ghost. Other nods was the Hammerhead frigate that we got to see. I think it's okay to throw these things in as nods, but not to keep going back to them as staples.
Yeah, I agree. Sometimes I find it a bit cheesy when someone crops up, particularly in the original. In the episode 1, 2, and 3. I found that there are lots of, and I didn't really want to see it. I wanted it to be something completely new, but I accept that it happened and we moved on. I recently watched the original, the modern trilogy, and I thought it wasn't too bad. It stands up quite well 10 years or so down the line.
You mean the prequels?
The prequels, sorry, that's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I've watched The Phantom Menace recently, and I've often thought, looking back and looking at the pod racing scenes and the duel with Darth Maul and all the rest of it, it actually does have some good moments that stand up in it well, and I think it did have a good Star Wars feel. I think it was perhaps a little bit sweet. I mean, The Phantom Menace came out to such fanfare, didn't it? I mean, it was almost like the original trilogies, and that it was on kids' lunchboxes, duvet sets, toys were coming out left, right, and centre. It was even on Pepsi cans, because I remember the old Pepsi can, which had a picture of Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn on the side of it. Although at the time I worked in the lamp industry in Cambridge, and there was a guy that I worked with called Kevin Jeffries that looked just like Qui-Gon Jinn. So we would go around saying, why have they put Kevin Jeffries on the side of a Pepsi can? But it did have that sort of fanfare and that sort of status and size at the time. And I think we accepted the sort of kiddie sort of Jar Jar or the sort of early CGI cartoonish elements to it, believing that we were going to get something real special down the line. And of course, Attack of the Clones fell flat a little bit. Revenge of the Sith lifted it back up again a little bit more, but I don't think, I think The Phantom Menace was okay as a standalone, but I think it could have held us in what we were hoping for greater things, and it didn't. It kind of flattened out afterwards, and I think that's where the prequels kind of went wrong.
Okay, I agree.
Yeah.
Dave, I've got some other news. Disney's Star Wars Land promises full-sized AT-AT walkers.
Okay, so more than one AT-AT walker.
Yeah, there's a video, actually. I picked it up from empireonline.com.
Right.
But, and you can see the huge sort of skeletons of these giant machines that are being built. So hopefully you'll be able to actually get onto them.
So it's like the steel work and the frames and that at the moment.
Yeah, and they're starting to sort of fill out the figure right now. I'm not sure. I don't think they will be moving, however. I think they'll just be standing still. But yeah, it's a nice touch, I think.
Well, how many of these things have they got standing together? Are they going to recreate Hoth or something?
Well, there are only 2 I've seen at the moment. So
right.
The report says this. Originally announced during Disney's D23 event in 2015, the Star Wars-themed lands attractions are under construction at Walt Disney World in Florida and Disneyland in California. Okay, so we've got 2 different parks with 2 different Star Wars-themed rides.
Okay.
A new video from the park's blog revealed that full-sized AT-AT walkers will be part of the fun at both sites. Okay, so we've got at least 4. Yes, while they're being still built, they look like playground versions of the giant battle vehicles, but the video shows a version of what they end up as, even if we doubt they'll be shooting guests. As that way lies lawsuits and slightly lowered visiting figures. Among the other attractions will be the chance to take controls of the Millennium Falcon on a secret mission, an adventure that will places you squarely in the middle of a battle between the First Order and the Resistance. The parks are due to open in 2019, though there's a part of us that wants to send Ian McDermott to visit now, so they double their efforts.
Yeah, I mean, I had an idea when you first mentioned that all these things would all be in the same area, but it sounds like they're getting manufactured and then they're going to be moved and installed in place kind of thing, which that's got to be a job, hasn't it? Moving a full AT-AT. I mean, what are you going to do? Put it on a lorry trailer? Sure, you'd have to have it disassembled to move it.
It'd be like one of our dinosaurs is missing, sort of flatbed trailer with a lying down AT-AT walker on the back here.
Yeah, with his head sticking out of some flapping tarpaulin or something, like held down with bungees.
With Peter Ustinov doing a poor Chinese impression. Yeah, those are the days.
Roger Moore driving it and the trailer swinging around the corner of San Francisco or something like that. No, that's totally out of... Well, it might work. Yeah, that does sound good fun, though, having a full-size AT-AT. I don't know how you're supposed to get on board the AT-AT. Would it have like an airport ramp thing to walk onto it? Or would it have a lip? Perhaps you've got some sort of hoist thing like Luke's harpoon that he goes up with or something. I don't know. How would you get on board the AT-AT?
Remember Return of the Jedi? And it sort of, the side door opened at the elevator, didn't it?
Yeah, but that was at that sort of Imperial landing platform, so it kind of had a gantry at the right height for people to get on board. I've often thought this with AT-ATs, is how do you board an AT-AT? Do you know what I mean? It's like, how do you mount a horse or what have you? Is it actually able to sort of crouch down and lie down like a dog or something in front of the fireplace, or, crosses its legs and squats down on the floor? How does that work? I mean, these things can carry troops in the back. Well, you can't deploy troops from 100 foot up in the air because they'll break the neck by the time they hit the ground. How do you unload the troops that it carries?
And if there's an emergency or a fire on board, how quickly can people get off it?
Well, this is a very good question. I mean, it's not like just jumping out the door and rolling in the snow after a drop of a few foot, is it? I mean, you're right up there in the atmosphere, aren't you, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Bit of a design fault there with the AT-AT. I mean, we see in the films that it took a harpoon and tow cable to bring them down, but I think we're finding a few flaws with the old design, basically.
Well, we'll have to go to Disneyland when it opens and test out our theories.
And see how we get on board.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll perhaps try different ways of getting on board.
I've got one other snippet, which is about the Ben Kenobi versus Darth Maul fighting rebels. Have you seen that at all, Dave?
I've seen people posting about it online, and I've not looked into it myself as such.
I'm not a big Rebels fan. I don't really watch many episodes, but the episode is called Twin Sons. And it did look, it looked good. It looked quite nostalgic, even though it's moderately recent history for us. But the Obi-Wan Kenobi we see is a lot sort of older than the Ewan McGregor incarnation that we saw in The Phantom Menace, etc.
Right. So older as well than the incarnation we see in the Clone Wars animation too.
Yeah. So I'm not going to reveal any spoilers because it is really fresh and it's out there now. But it would be an episode I think I would be interested to watch, even if I don't watch Rebels, just to see these two sort of iconic characters go head to head once again.
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of discussion in online forums about the two of them and about this particular episode and what have you. And in some of the Star Wars groups, people asking each other what they thought about yesterday's episode of Rebels, etc., etc. I'm trying to avoid all of it until I've got a chance to at some point in the future see it. So it's difficult with Rebels because they do reruns on the Disney Channel and Cartoon Network as part of your Sky package.
Yeah.
But it's knowing when they're doing it. I always come across them when they're halfway through a rerun and miss half the episodes. It'd be nice if there was some way of knowing in advance when they were going to rerun a season back to back sort of thing, and then set the skybox up so I could catch them. Do it that way. I mean,
even that doesn't work perfectly, does it? Because there are lots of breaks that American TV shows take, and you'll miss a couple of weeks, and then your Skybox won't start up again when the series starts up again. That's happened to me a few times now.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, we live in the time really when the box set is king, because that's the only way you know you're getting everything in the correct chronological order. I think it's just a case of patience, really. I mean, sooner or later they'll re-show it. Didn't you say something about Frank Oz and his connection to Episode 8, The Last Jedi?
Yeah, there's been a lot of speculation whether Frank Oz is actually returning as Yoda in The Last Jedi, which, it's kind of out of sorts because Yoda faded away a long time ago in that universe, didn't he? But it'd be great if he came back as a Force ghost or something like that. And Frank Oz has been a bit cloak and dagger about revealing whether he is or not. Obviously, he's probably under contract of some sort. Lots of potential lawsuits if he does give up the goods. But Frank Oz, he's been a bit quiet in recent years, I guess. But it'd be great to see him turn up in a Star Wars film again.
He must be getting on a tad now, mustn't he?
He must be. I guess he's probably in his 70s, probably.
Yeah.
I haven't checked that, so I'm apologising right up front for if I've aged Frank Oz by several years. Sorry, I'm sure he'll come out with a Yoda quote about that. He says here...
Age matters not or something.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a prisoner at war here, and I can only give you my name, rank, and serial number. To be true to the people who asked me, and they are kind of my family, I have to say I have been asked not to talk about it. I love Yoda. I would be happy to talk to you about it at the time they let me. So there you go. So it's a bit cryptic, but it certainly sounds as if there's something there.
Yeah. Well, that's something for the DVD extras then, really. I think it's nice in a way if they're going to bring Yoda back in some form of, I don't know, whether it would be a puppet or animatronics or something like that, to involve Frank Oz in that way. I mean, the CGI Yoda that was used in some of the prequel scenes, I don't think anybody liked it. Didn't look good.
No.
I think it's fair to say that the puppet manipulated by Frank Oz looks more authentic. It looked more lifelike, and maybe it's just that came first, so that's a visual palette that we're more used to. I don't know. It's certainly interesting to see if Frank Oz does get involved, though.
Well, you could see sort of Rey intruding on Luke Skywalker, just having a chat with a Force ghost of Yoda or something like that. A scene like that would be fantastic, I think.
A Force ghost of Yoda and Hayden Christensen or something?
Not so much Hayden. I'm sure he's busy.
Oh, dear. I don't have anything else Star Wars related at the moment.
No, that's it from me. But I think there's some good little chunks to nibble on there, and when anything else comes up, we'll throw it on our Twitter feed or our Facebook page and keep everybody informed.
Yeah, as it usually does about a day after we've recorded, so it's too late for us to get it in. But we do seem to have them sort of dry patches when there's not so much on the go in the Star Wars universe, and then we'll get a seriously busy patch where a lot of stuff's happening, a lot of news gets made, a trailer gets released, and it's a job to fit it all in.
Yeah.
Okay, should we move on to Showcase then?
Let's do it.
Hi, my name's Michael Tsalepis from London, England, and you're listening to Hot Wampa. Do you guys know how to pole vault?
Well, I mean, normally I would do the read through here, but in order really to help me out and save a bit of time, you've gone and done the read through on the plot to Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah, and Dave, I certainly found it difficult at points to keep a flow going with some of the names that are used in the Hitchhiker's Guide. So I sort of empathise with you, really, and some of the tough moments you've had. Because you try to read it like with a flow, but at the same time, it's difficult.
It's not so difficult if it's conventional wording, the sort of wording that you use on a day-to-day basis. But like you say, when you're getting names thrown in that aren't conventional, like slightly Bartfast and things like that, it doesn't flow off the tongue very well. I think I saw an interview once with Harrison Ford when he's saying you can write this stuff but you can't say it.
That's
and it wasn't until I started doing plot read-throughs that I understood what Harrison Ford was actually trying to say when he said that. It's not as easy. I've often wondered in the past if people have listened to me doing read-throughs on podcasts and thinking, what's that idiot got a reading age of about 2 or something? And they don't actually realise quite how difficult it is.
Well, if they think
you're the worst, because you'll pick films with foreign-named actors and directors and stuff that I can't get my tongue around.
It's not intentional. But I think that if there are people complaining, we certainly don't hear from them, do we? So it's not too bad.
I think we don't do too badly, to be honest with you. Let's have a listen to your read through then.
Okay.
The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is a 2005 British-American comic science fiction film directed by Gareth Jennings, based upon previous works in the media franchise of the same name, created by Douglas Adams. It stars Martin Freeman, Sam Rockwell, Mos Def, Zooey Deschanel, and the voices of Stephen Fry as the guidebook, and Alan Rickman as Marvin the Paranoid Android. Adams, who co-wrote the screenplay with Carrie Kirkpatrick, died in 2001 before production began. The film is dedicated to him, and it grossed over $100 million worldwide. Plot. The film begins with a Broadway-style number, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, sung by the dolphins of the world, who are aware of Earth's impending doom. At the end, they all jump out to the oceans and into space, leaving Earth for good. One Thursday morning, Arthur Dent discovers that his house is to be immediately demolished to make way for a bypass. He tries delaying the bulldozers by laying down in front of them. Ford Prefect, a friend of Arthur's, convinces him to go to the pub with him. Over a beer, as muscle relaxant, Ford explains that he is an alien from a planet in the vicinity of Betelgeuse, and a journalist working on the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, a universal book, and that the Earth is to be demolished later that day by a race called Vogons, to make way for a hyperspace bypass. Suddenly, a Vogon constructor fleet appears in the sky and destroys the planet. Ford saves himself and Arthur by stowing away on the Vogon ship. When discovered, they are thrown out of an airlock, but are picked up by the starship Heart of Gold. They find Ford's semi-cousin, Zephoid Beeblebrox, the president of the galaxy. He has stolen the ship, along with Tricia Trillian Macmillan, an Earthwoman whom Arthur had met previously, and Marvin the Paranoid Android, a clinically depressed robot that constantly complains about life. Zephoid explains that he is seeking the planet Margarethia, where he believes he can discover the question of life, the universe, and everything, to match with the answer 42, given by the supercomputer Deep Thought. Zephoid stole the Heart of Gold to use his improbability drive to get to Margarethia, through trial and error. During one of these attempts, they end up on the planet Vildvoitoi 6. Zephoid decides to visit Homer Kavula, his opponent from the election. Upon learning of Zephoid's plan, Kavula announces that he has the coordinates to Margarethia. He takes one of Zephoid's two heads hostage, and demands they bring him the point of view gun, created by Deep Thought, which allows the target to understand the shooter's point of view. As they are leaving the planet, Trillian is captured by Vogons. The other travellers escape to rescue her from the Vogon homeworld bureaucracy, facing long lines of frustration form processing. Trillian learns of the Earth's destruction and is outraged to learn that Zephoid signed the authorization for the destruction of Earth, thinking it was a request for an autograph. The Heart of Gold is chased by the Vogons, led by Galactic Vice President Questula Rontok, who is attempting to rescue Zephoid from himself, after an incident in which Zephoid kidnapped himself in order to forego presidential duties. The Heart of Gold arrives at Margarethia, narrowly avoiding the planet's automated missile defense systems. On the planet, Zephoid, Ford, and Trillian take a portal to Deep Thought, but Arthur hesitates, and the portal closes before he and Marvin can use it. The trio encounter the computer and ask it whether it has calculated the ultimate question. It reveals that it designed another supercomputer to do so, Earth. When the trio finds the point of view gun, Trillian shoots Zephoid, making him understand how she feels about the destruction of the Earth, as well as how much she loves Arthur. Meanwhile, a Margarethian called Slarty Bartfast appears and takes Arthur on a tour of the factory construction floor where Earth Mark II is being built. Slarty Bartfast takes Arthur, a recreation of his home, of the new Earth, where the others are enjoying a feast provided by the pan-dimensional beings who commissioned Arthur's original Earth, and who resemble a pair of mice. The mice who constructed Deep Thought used the supercomputer to build an even larger supercomputer, the planet Earth, to determine the ultimate question. Believing Arthur the last remaining supercomputer component may hold the ultimate question, the mice restrain Arthur in order to remove his brain. Initially panicking, a resigned Arthur tells them to take it, admits that the only question that ever mattered to him was whether Trillian was the one, the answer to which Arthur realizes is yes. But as the mice continue, Arthur breaks free of his restraints and squashes the mice under a teapot. Outside the house, the group is then confronted by the Vogons, who open fire. As the group takes shelter, Marvin is left outside, and despite being shot in the back of the head, recovers and uses the point-of-view gun on the Vogons. causing them to become depressed and unable to fight. As the Vogons are taken away and Questila rejoins with Zephoid, Arthur chooses to explore the galaxy with Trillian and lets Slati Bartfast finalize the new Earth without him. The Heart of Gold crew decide to visit the restaurant at the end of the universe.
Okay then, Mark, your read through there. I mean, you're looking really from the perspective of the modern film, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I was introduced to The Hitchhiker's Guide as a TV show. When was that first broadcast? Was it in the late 70s, early 80s?
Early 80s, I think.
Yeah, and I guess I was too young, really, Dave, for the TV show. It seemed a bit advanced in many ways. I don't know. It kind of looked like Doctor Who with the wobbly sets and things like that. But I could tell it was kind of on the upper scale of intelligence, and I think it appealed more to sort of people in their mid-20s or something like that, you know.
It's funny you should say that. It looked like sort of Doctor Who in terms of the sets and stuff. That's the immediate sort of palette that springs to my mind, sort of the early 80s Tom Baker type era Doctor Who type sets, or something like the Tripods, which would have also been made by the BBC at around the time. It's got that sort of visual look to it, hasn't it, in the effects and the sets. I'm like you. I can remember that being broadcast, the BBC version being broadcast on the television around the early 80s. But I think I only ever saw one episode of it, and I've seen other clips from that series later on. And I think it must have been the first one, because the memories that are in my mind of that are of some guy in a pair of pajamas and a dressing gown lying down in front of a JCB, which of course is Arthur Dent trying to prevent them from knocking his house down. And then later on of him and Ford Prefect hiding aboard the Vogon ship, and a door flying open as a Vogon walks into the chamber that they're hiding in.
Yeah.
And that's my only real memory from the time of the series. I've seen clips since. I've seen the clip, I think, that they're all sitting around on the bridge of the ship, and it's the bridge of the ship itself is changed into like a restaurant or something like that. You're going to have to sort of bear with me, because the names and what have you and the terms and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, for some reason, don't always stay with me. But yeah, I mean, I think that's really my memory of that. I've never read Douglas Adams' original novel. I've only ever absorbed the story wholly as Douglas Adams wrote it through the audiobook, which I've listened to a few times, the most recent time being during my work and in the last week. So that's really going to be my main point of familiarity with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in this one. You're kind of coming at it from the film, or the modern film. And I think that possibly could be interesting to compare the incarnations.
You said the audiobook is read by Stephen Fry, isn't it?
Yes.
And he's the narrator in the film. So there are lots of connections here. Lots of British connections. It's a very British movie, actually.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is it. I listened to your read through last night on the PC, so obviously to try and get myself up to date with what you were talking about prior to going into the show. And you sort of started to talk about Alan Rickman and Sam Rockwell and stuff, and I thought, hang on, is he talking about Galaxy Quest all over again? Has he got his cast list mixed up? Yeah. Like I said, I've not seen the film, so I don't have that common frame of reference. I have seen visual stills and frames from the film, and one of the most obvious differences to me, other than the cast, is Marvin and the way Marvin looks. I mean, I remember in the original BBC incarnation, he was quite a square, boxy. His head looked like to me like one of them Easter Island head things, that sort of rectangular, sharp-angled, squarish sort of shape to it. And obviously I've seen the visuals from the frames from the film, and it's kind of a round type IA type robot type thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a nice sort of spherical head. Now, Marvin in this one is played by Warwick Davis.
Right.
And Alan Rickman provides the voice. So there's a nice Harry Potter connection there between the two actors. And then separately, we've got Star Wars and Galaxy Quest. So, it's difficult with some of these actors to find sci-fi, particularly Alan Rickman, as we talked about last time on Galaxy Quest. But I think the Marvin is really good in this one.
I've got it in my notes that he's my favourite character, but I don't know whether that's listening to the audiobook incarnation I've listened to last week or the BBC TV version of Marvin. The two are very much the same. The way Stephen Fry narrates Marvin the paranoid android in the audiobook, he comes across as very much the same character from the BBC television series, like life's dull, why do you bother type monotone, type downbeat type characters.
And that sounds like Alan Rickman right there.
Is that how he portrays him in the modern film?
Exactly like that, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, obviously they've all kind of gone back to that BBC incarnation as such, as a reference in how to portray Marvin. I believe Hitchhikers, was it originally released as a radio drama or a radio play prior to it being televised?
That's right, yeah. Interestingly, in the radio series, they said that Belgium is the rudest word in the universe. In this film, it can be heard 3 times. So,
yeah. I don't know. I have problems with it. And I think I have problems with the Douglas Adams source material. I can't really see the point of a lot of it. Maybe it's on an intellectual plane that I can't connect with. Maybe the problem there is with me. But I can't really see where the humour in it is risky enough to entertain someone of my mindset. And I think there is something to it that perhaps, oh God, I don't want to stereotype, that kind of appeals perhaps more towards that sort of middle class university graduate type of demographic as opposed to the working man as such. I don't know if that makes sense. There's something I miss about it.
It does. I mean, we were kind of spoiled at that age with Star Wars and other sci-fi that we had along at the time. And the American version always seemed more polished and professionally put together, and obviously higher budgets and production costs. And things like Hitchhiker's Guide and Doctor Who, etc., just seemed a bit lower, highbrow, but lower cost. So
yeah,
I guess that's why it wasn't so attractive to me at the time.
I mean, it's funny you say that because I've got in my notes here, I haven't seen the movie, but looking at some of the visual stills online from the movie, I've written down myself, has the movie been enhanced to make it more palatable to a mainstream audience?
Well, perhaps they tried to do that. I mean, I was just going to mention Red Dwarf. We come back to a lot, which, even though it wasn't too long after this, it certainly made fun of the sets and made fun of the equipment that they had. It was meant to look old and a bit crap. And I don't know, I like Red Dwarf more. Maybe the coarse humour was more to my liking at that time.
I think Red Dwarf was more easily relatable. It's funny because there are parallels in a sense that Arthur Dent, obviously, with the exception of Trillian, Arthur Dent is the last surviving member of humanity as such. And we look to Dave Lister as the same sort of thing. I think Red Dwarf was more intimate. You got the sense of the desperation and what have you with Red Dwarf, whereas I don't know that from what I've taken from Hitchhikers that the character of Arthur Dent is so overwhelmed by all these new and amazing things that he's seeing, he doesn't really have time to be glum and remorseful. And also in Hitchhiker's Guide to a Galaxy, when you've got a character who's as downtrodden, as downbeaten, and let's face it, as much a miserable as Marvin is, it's hard for anyone to seem as remorseful against him, isn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody's going to be that remorseful. He's deliberately remorseful. He's overly remorseful. I don't know. I don't know how many times I've been exposed to the story of it. I first listened to the audiobook of it over a decade ago. I've listened to it a couple of times since, like I said, the most recent being as recent as last week. And I still struggle, I think, to understand something about Hitchhikers. It's not like a story that I follow and it gives me a reaction. I don't find myself invested in the characters. I don't find myself wanting to know what the plot, this, that, and the other is. I kind of go through the story and then sit back, cross my arms and think to myself, well, what was that all about? I don't know. Like I said, there's something about it that I miss. Maybe that's my own perspective on it. Perhaps other people get it. I don't know. But there's something about it that I miss.
I'm in the same boat as you, Dave, here. Douglas Adams was born in Cambridge, just down the road. He grew up there. He's obviously a very well-educated guy. He died age 49 in 2001.
He's very young. How comes he passed away?
Yeah, what was it? It was, I think, a terminal illness. If you bear with me, I'll find out.
Yeah.
No, it was a heart attack. Sorry, it was a heart attack that killed him. Aged,
Okay.
49. So,
Mm.
and he was friends with lots of top sort of the evolutionist Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
He was friends with him.
I've read a quote from Richard Dawkins about him. Richard Dawkins claims he may be his only successful convert to atheism.
Yeah.
So Richard Dawkins was taking credit for Douglas Adams being an atheist. I mean, obviously, the story takes an atheistic point of view. It tries to look at, these things all exist because of systems as opposed to anything divine, which is fine. I think most of us accept that is the case, but not quite the systems that Douglas Adams came up with.
They were quite unique, weren't they? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a fancy dress party scene in the film, and it contains several references to Douglas Adams' own 40th birthday party from 1992, where Richard Dawkins met his wife, Layla Ward. So yeah, that's not. It feels quite warm, but in some respects, that's one of my faults with the film, because I wrote it feels a bit twee, which is a word I don't really like, but it's a kind of British niceness. And I wrote, secondly, is it Love Actually in space? Because, all right, you've got Martin Freeman, who's in Love Actually, Alan Rickman, who's in Love Actually, but it does feel a bit nicey, kind of, even though it's a serious topic.
You think it's a bit too much of the sort of Islington scene?
Yeah, it does feel like that. The director, Gareth Jennings, he recently directed Sing, which is the animated one with different animals singing, and Son of Rambo, which was a really good film, actually. Did you see that, Son of Rambo?
No, it's one of those films. I've seen a scene from it, and it looks like something I would really enjoy and would genuinely find funny. But for whatever reason, I've never found the time to get around to watching it.
Yeah, it's worth a look. And so a good, decent director who hasn't done much, but I don't know. I mean, this one, a budget of $50 million, which is quite a lot for a sort of a British film. And it grossed 51 and a bit million. So it's only just over what it actually, the output. Touchstone Pictures Spyglass Entertainment, released 29th of April 2005 in the USA. What else have we got? Film and locations, the Canary Islands in Spain, Tenerife in the Canary Islands, Gwent in Wales, Moorgate Underground Station in London, and the Beehive Pub in Buntingford, Hertfordshire. So if you want to go to the pub that's at the beginning and at the end of the film, you can pop there.
Okay.
What else? Arthur Dent, as we know, Martin Freeman, he was in The Bill, Black Books, Love Actually, The Hobbit, and Sherlock as Dr. John Watson. So his career has blossomed, really, hasn't it, I guess? Turned up in a couple of Marvel films recently.
Listening to your read-through on it, is this, it's not the same as the story I'm familiar with.
It's not.
Elements of it are.
Yeah.
Is the modern film almost like an omnibus or a compilation of all of Douglas Adams' novels in the Hitchhiker vein? Because he did more than Hitchhikers, didn't he?
He did 5 books, didn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, the name of all 5 books are mentioned throughout the film.
Yeah.
But mostly harmless, however, is only in the deleted scenes of the film. So, but yeah, I agree with you that there are bits of similar in a way to Jurassic Park 2, which, I didn't think was a great film at all. But Jurassic Park 2 had lots of moments from the first novel that didn't make the cut. So yeah, there is a mishmash, or as to appeal to our Southeast or South Asian listeners, it is a bit higgledy-piggledy.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't completely familiar with the story that you were talking about. I mean, especially with sort of the Vogon pieces at the end. And I can't remember that in the Douglas Adams incarnation that I've listened to.
I've got, do you know the funeral scene is a pallbearer, and a guy carrying a coffin, or there's quite a few of them, but one of them is Mark Smith. You might not recognise Mark Smith, unless I tell you that he was Rhino from Gladiators. So that's a nice bit of casting there. And actually, he was in Batman Begins, Oscar-winning Argo, and recently Zootopia, which is the animated Disney film. So he's obviously made a career from himself from being a big guy who could carry things.
Well, why not? I've got a few bits and pieces. I mean, there's a lot of Easter eggs out there associated to hitchhikers, which I'm sure you're probably aware of most of these anyway, or you might even have them on your own list. One of which, of course, is, as you've already said, Douglas Adams' link to Cambridge. It goes a little bit further than that. The BBC micro game Elite and Hitchhikers are linked via the mostly harmless combat rating. So obviously David Braben and Ian Bell were both computer students at Cambridge University. I imagine they're probably around the same age as Douglas Adams, and they are also obviously the developers of the BBC micro game Elite, which I believe is still officially classed as the world's first three-dimensional game. And the second combat rating that you can attain in Elite once you've been promoted from harmless is mostly harmless, and that's a direct nod to the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yep.
So that's an interesting and probably quite obscure nod, but that's exactly what it is. The English jazz funk fusion band Level 42 take their name from the book, with 42 being quoted as the ultimate answer to everything.
And life, the universe and everything, which is why we chosen this film, I think, for this episode, as we are episode 42.
We are episode 42. It's the reference to 42, and I am 42, so it's all 42s. Not content with just those Easter eggs, I've decided to throw some in myself. The specific cover art to this episode of Hot Wampa features a T-shirt with the 42 quote on it floating in space. And in making that cover art, I've rotated that T-shirt to an angle of 42 degrees.
Wow.
So I've actually thrown in some 42 linked Easter eggs into this episode of Hot Wampa
I can't
as
believe
well.
it. Dave, I think LucasArts will be calling you any moment now. You'll be getting a big job soon up there.
Yeah. Actually, it was completely coincidental. So maybe that's something to do with the improbability gun or what have you. I don't know. But
Maybe
when I looked
that's the way the universe is tilted for us this way, you know.
Yeah, I just manually tilted the image in the image manipulation software that I use, and when I looked at it, it actually said 42 degrees. So there you go. It's completely coincidental. It wasn't a deliberate choice, but I thought it looks cool. That seems cool. That's how it's going. So that's what I did.
That works for me, and that'll go down in Hot Wampa history, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I've got a fact. I don't know if you know this, but it's quite a good one. It was my trump card, actually. Douglas Adams owned the first two Apple Macintosh computers delivered to the UK.
I've read that as well somewhere.
While Stephen Fry owned the third.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Stephen Fry has obviously had quite an association with Douglas Adams projects, including the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I don't know. Like I said, I have problems with it. There's something about me that doesn't get it. There's a few things I've noted about it in my perception of it. Is Douglas Adams simply using it as a way of having a dig at everybody who has ever annoyed or disagreed with him? I mean, bureaucracy gets a good kick in the face in Hitchhikers, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it's form filling or the local authority trying to knock his house down, Arthur Dent's house down to build a bypass. Even in the alien races and cultures he encounters, there's these protocols, holding rooms, consultations, etc., etc. Does Douglas Adams have an ingrained hatred of bureaucracy, and is he kind of burying that to a degree in Hitchhikers, do you think?
I think so. I mean, some quotes here. I mean, I love deadlines. I like the whooshing sound they make as they fly by. So he certainly didn't like to be put in his place and told when he had to do stuff. So
it does sound like you can't push Douglas Adams, that he was the kind of guy who did what he wanted when he wanted, and that was the way it was kind of going to work.
There's a good musical number at the beginning, Dave. So long, and thanks for all the fish.
Which is a quote by the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And I've got a point there about the Dolphins, because obviously It makes a note in the audiobook that the Dolphins get off the planet prior to the Vogons trashing it. How do the Dolphins get off planet before the Vogons trash it? That's what I want to know. Where's the ship that picks the Dolphins up? Where do they go?
Well, the Dolphins seem to be able to just fly off into space. Yeah.
Really? I mean, he's got a bit of a thing with marine mammals, because obviously we see the whale come back in later on. Other plot holes involving animals in the storyline. How that I've got thought of this myself, wrote all these points down. How the hell can mice be the masters of Earth? If so, why have they not eradicated cats? I'm starting to sound like Douglas Adams now, aren't I?
It's a fair point. And there's a directed cameo as Gareth Jennings actually plays Frankie Mouse. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there, Dave. So it seems all a bit of his irreverent humour, I guess.
Yeah. I don't know whether that's something to the perception that these things are so small and powerless that it's kind of turning a joke on its head that these things would be in charge. I like the idea of the Earth itself being a supercomputer. Where does he get his names from? Things like Slarty Bartfast. I mean, what on earth was he drinking the night he came up with that?
Well, he actually came up with a worse name, but he decided that the name Slarty Bartfast was supposed to sound rude, but not rude enough to upset the BBC censors.
Yeah, it's not really an official derogatory or crass term, is it? So no. I suppose they couldn't really censor it if it doesn't really fall into those categories. I've got that the story is ultimately as pointless as the number 42 being the answer to everything, so that it maintains that consistency in that sense.
Yeah, and in the film, similar to the Hot Wampa artwork you spoke about, Deep Thought explains the significance of the number 42 minutes into the film. So there we are. What else? Shada, which is a prison planetoid of the Time Lords, can be seen in the background during the factory floor scene on Magrathea. Douglas Adams, he wrote an episode featuring Shada in 1963 for Doctor Who, but it went unaired. So he was a prolific writer as well as sort of a novelist for TV as well. What else have I got? The Encyclopedia Galactica, which was Isaac Asimov's, one of his favourite Foundation novels, which is The Hitchhiker's Guide, is apparently a parody of that.
Right.
The most expensive part of wardrobe was the bathrobe that Arthur Dent wears, because apparently it had to be sewn on every time he was wearing it on set. Even more expensive than Sam Rockwell's Zaphoid Beeble Brox's double header, so it was quite an expensive piece of kit.
I've also got some of the inconsistencies between the BBC incarnation and the audiobook, which is taken directly from Douglas Adams' novel. The character of Trillian, I believe, in the BBC's incarnation was played by, was it Sandra Dickinson?
Yeah.
Who's quite a pale, slight, blonde-haired American lady, isn't she? Sorry?
Lovely character.
Yeah, and in the book or the audio audiobook, she's described as a darkish character of darker tone, skin complex and with darker hair and this, that and the other. So they obviously, physically, the two characters don't look the same. I've got it's almost as bad as an Arthur C. Clarke novel or adaptation in getting to a sensible and comprehensive point. I think Douglas Adams was having a laugh at everyone. I think he's thinking, once I've passed away, people will still be sitting here in podcasts in 15 years' time talking about something I've done, trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, that's right. I think that's what he left. That's his legacy, to get people scratching their heads, so many years after he passed away.
It's like the monolith, only he knows what it means. Yeah. And it's kind of, he's kind of taking that secret to the grave with him. My favourite character is Marvin the Paranoid Android in both the audiobook and the BBC's incarnations of Douglas Adams' original story. I've got in brackets, I like Marvin.
I like Marvin. You should have a bumper sticker with that. I like Marvin. Richard Griffiths is in this. He's quite a large chap. Have you seen any Harry Potter films, Dave?
Isn't he the... Oh, God, am I thinking about the wrong bloke? Is he dead? The Pie in the Sky guy?
That's the one, yeah. So he's in this. He plays Jolts in this.
Right.
He was also in Superman 2, I found out. He was one of the terrorists in France.
Is he?
Yeah. So there you go. He was also in Sleepy Hollow and the History Boys.
He's dead now, though, isn't he?
He died, several years ago.
Yeah.
In the modern film or 2005 film, we got Ford Prefect is most deaf. So that's quite a contrast, isn't it, to the to the audio and to the TV show. Bill Bailey is the whale in this.
Right.
He's got a good sort of voice. He could probably have played Marvin actually as well. He's got that kind of downtrodden sort of voice he comes across as.
Well, you don't know this yet because you haven't heard it, but I've actually made an intro for this episode of myself impersonating Marvin.
I can't wait for that.
And that's the BBC incarnation.
That could be a new career for you, mate.
I was looking on some Audacity forums the other night and looking up how to use Audacity to make different vocal sound effects, and there was one for a robot, so I thought, I've got to do this. I'm also looking forward to having a go at a Stormtrooper and Darth Vader at some point in the future, because I've downloaded the tutorials about how to do that as well. Brilliant. But that'll be in the opening of this episode anyway, so people listening to us talking will already have heard that. I don't really have much more on Hitchhiker's Guide, I'm afraid.
Well, what's your thoughts on Helen Mirren? Do you like Helen Mirren?
I couldn't eat a whole one. It's okay for us, the sort of serious crime drama of sort of a professional individual. I mean, why do you ask?
Because she's the voice of Deep Thought in this film.
Right. I mean, I imagine that Deep Thought would have the voice. I mean, obviously, it's a computer intelligence. Would have the voice of like a divine character, like some sort of booming, like, I don't know. Deep Thought should be Brian Blessed.
I knew as soon as she said booming, that fits only one man.
Yeah, I imagine it or sort of Charlton Heston playing God or something. You know, I mean, that sort of status to Deep Thought. I don't know that Helen Mirren. I don't know. I guess a computer intelligence could sound like whatever it wanted to, I guess.
And the Deep Thought technician is played by Edgar Wright, who's the director of Shaun of the Dead.
Okay.
Hot Fuzz, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, etc. So there's some good cameos and good performances, I guess. But as I said, it is very British, and even out in space, it seems like, should we have a cup of tea? Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's ever any real peril.
Isn't that how the mice ultimately buy them? They crush them with a teapot.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing. When you say it's very British, and I imagine an international audience watching it and thinking, I don't really get that because it's very British. I'm very British and I don't really get it either. So don't worry. I'm not sure you're supposed to. I think the answer to, it isn't 42, whatever the answer is. It's locked inside Douglas Adams' cranium, and sadly he took it with him. I'm not being too kind to hitchhikers here.
No. So, I mean, it's a difficult one, isn't it, to review?
Yeah.
Because it is much loved, and I think we can respect that, you know, it is loved by many people. But at the same time, I found it a bit of a puzzle box of Hellraiser proportions. So, you know, it's not one I'll probably open up again.
Yeah, I mean, it's like Parmesan cheese, I'm sure, is much loved by many people, but I can't stand the stuff. I think it's revolting.
It does smell like stale vomit as well, doesn't it? So
yeah, this is like Marmite. I think you either love it or you hate it. You don't kind of sit on the fence. Funny, I don't know. I don't hate it. I'm just indifferent about it. Like I said, I don't really get it. And like I said, I've listened to the story a few times and come away with that feeling, well, what am I supposed to feel right now? You know, what am I supposed to think? I didn't really find myself following it or invested in the story, but then I didn't really comprehend whatever point the story's trying to make. I think maybe I think too much into it. I think maybe you're just supposed to, it's like lift music. You know what I mean? It's just there in the background. You're not really supposed to get it. It's kind of ambience, I think.
Yeah, I've just got panpipes in my head now.
Have you?
Yeah, just imagine like that Celine Dion one from Titanic sort of playing on panpipes. We're in a lift. You've taken me to a bad place with that one.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I said, it's quite difficult for me to talk about it because I kind of do feel, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just I'm just not passionate about it.
Well, I guess we're going to have to put a request out there for anyone else to come back with some feedback. Do you agree with Dave? You can't agree with me because I haven't really given you a solid opinion. If I was to give it a 10, mark out of 10 for the film, I would say probably a 6. It's got lots of actors that I enjoy watching. It's got some fantastic special effects. The visual effects are great. You can't deny that. But the story is a bit like ho-hum. Do we really care what happens at the end? Even though it's our very own planet that's threatened by these aliens. So, yeah, that's about all I can say.
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I can't gauge the film because I've not seen the film. The story, I guess I can give a mark to, and I guess that I'll give it 5 out of 10 on the virtue that it is lift music. I can have it in my headphones and listen to it, and it's fine, and, you know. But that's about as much as it is to me. I don't find myself deliberately picking up my headphones so I can find out what happens next or find myself really invested. But like I said, I think there's something on a level to it that I can't interpret.
Yeah.
You know, why that is, perhaps that's my issue. I mean, I'm sure there's people out there that love it and really get something out of it. And I certainly wouldn't want to patronize or insult those people in any way. I don't know. It just doesn't work for me.
No, I agree with you, Dave. And I hope there aren't going to be people sort of coming to getting off the train in Ely from Cambridge, Douglas Adams fans, trying to hunt down the Hot Wampa boys, you know.
We've got to be careful because we're not far away, are we?
And it is a
You know what I
much
mean?
loved story, and it is definitely sci-fi. So
Yeah, but yeah, okay. I don't know that we've got much more. Unless you want to bring up much more on Hitchhikers.
no, I think I brought up all I wanted after talking about Celine Dion. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, well, okay then. Well, we might as well get rid of that and get onto some local craziness.
Oh, right.
Have you got much?
As far as local news, I've probably got one piece that I like.
Uh-huh.
How about you?
I've got 3, but they're all very short and not the best quality. I wish I'd proofread one of these first, actually, because one of these I printed out based on the headline, and then when I started reading into it, it wasn't quite as exciting as it initially sounded.
Yeah, that's always gutting when that happens. You think, oh, this is a great local news story, but yeah. I know, I've done the same before. Do you want me to start, and then we can, because you probably got 3 shorter ones. This isn't very long, actually, but
okay.
This is another list, actually. I don't know why. Maybe I like lists. Nothing like the top 10 dogging spots in Cambridgeshire. It's much safer than that.
Why do I imagine that should have Dr. Fox giving it like a chart countdown or something? Number 9, it's Roswell Pits.
Up at 8.
Putting on the Ritz at the Pits.
Well,
sorry, carry on.
Yeah, this is from the Cambridge News, and it's about pubs in Cambridge, and it's giving you the top 9. Oh, I don't know why they chose 9, but the top 9 seating areas in pubs in Cambridge. Springtime's here, hopefully we get some nice days where you can go and have a lunch or a beer in a pub. No particular order either. The Anchor at Silver Street. Are you aware of that pub, Dave?
No, not really.
Okay, the Anchor's the one that's on the bridge where everyone's punting beneath you.
Okay, I'm with you.
Yeah, so that's a nice view, and it's certainly a nice place to see in the spring.
Yeah.
The next one is the Cambridge Blue on Gueda Street, because it backs onto Mill Road Cemetery. So you could say it's the dead centre of town. But I'm sorry. But yeah, it's a nice place. Spring is in the air, nice trees and that around this.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I imagine zombies or something crashing through the back of it, like Shaun of the Dead or something.
Some people would pay for that experience.
Yeah. Queen starts playing on the jukebox.
The Paul and Arms on Chesterton Road, which is really famous for its live music. So that's a great venue. I don't know why it's got good views. I don't think it has it particularly. The Empress on Fode Street, which it says is on the corner. It's an eccentric boozer, and it's got lots of wall cuttings of different news stories. So maybe we can go there one day and find some local news.
I don't know, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I like places with a little bit of character like that, where they've got bizarre things lying around it and stuff,
Yeah. Unlike this one, which is the Full St. George on Midsummer Common. So if you were going to see the fireworks in November, you're probably, this is a pub just across that way. You see lots of cows in the summer. But for me, it's not a very...
In the pub?
Probably. If it's Frisian. We've got the King Street Run here as well. I'm sure you know that one, don't you, Dave? The King Street Run. It's
great name for a pub.
It's on King Street, but this one is like the sort of rock pub. It's got like the alternative stuff. You might find a bit of a white snake or a wasp on the jukebox. It's that kind of place. And I think the jukebox gives it enough character in itself. But what I really like is if you go to the gents' toilet, when you push the panel, the metal panel on the door, they've actually changed it to the opposite side. So they know which one, if you walk in and try to go to the loo and the door doesn't open, you're obviously not a local or a regular. So it's a good way to catch people out. Let's go down a bit. The Granter on Newnham Road. Granter's one of my favourite pubs there, looking over the river. Really lovely place. You can see the fish swimming by, people punting and stuff like that. Lovely views in the Granter. The Cambridge Brew House on King Street as well. If you're doing a King Street run pub crawl, it's quite good to go there. Good Sunday dinner. It's a bit trendy, it's a bit. They've done it up. It used to be the Bun Shop, so I don't know if you know that, but now it's gonna. It's a nice pub. I can't take it away from them. They've got a locker room upstairs for sport and that, but it just feels a bit manufactured in a way. Another new pub is the Old Bicycle Shop on Regent Street. This is obviously an old bicycle shop, which is now a pub. And I think one of the nicest things about this pub is you got the views over Regent Street, so you can see people walking up and down there. And there are some nice views in the springtime, that's for sure. So that is the top 9 Cambridge pubs.
Okay. I mean, when you mentioned the pub there with the sort of memorabilia on the wall and stuff, it did make me think a little bit about when we went to see Rogue One in the art cinema.
Yeah.
And I went to use the gentleman's facilities prior to us going in to watch the film. And I noticed in there that they actually had a Rogue One poster mounted about 3 inches dead centre over the top of the wall urinal. And I thought, that's quite a funny image. So I was going to take my iPod out of my pocket and snap a photo of it. And as I did so, some geezer walked into the bathroom and started giving me funny looks. So I thought it's probably not good to have your camera around the jets. But that's just a side note on that. But I thought that might look quite funny on Facebook or something, the Rogue One film poster mounted directly above the urinal.
Was Felicity Jones in the picture?
Yeah. But like I said, because somebody walked in, I never took it in the end. I kind of tucked it away in my pocket and probably looked more suspicious than ever.
Are you talking about the phone now?
Yeah.
Okay.
But okay, well, that's your pub list. Anything else do you need to tie into that?
No, I think I would just go to those pubs and give a review when I do.
Okay, well, that's that for this episode of pubcasting. Right, this one's published 10:43. I've got a time of the day. On 7th of March 2017, it was updated at 10:43 again on the 17th of March 2017. Is it today?
No, that's Friday, St. Patrick's Day.
Okay. Right. Via the Evening Standard and their correspondent, of course, the great Ben Jolly. Motorist who struck large metal foot on A142 near Soham escapes unhurt. Now, I've read that sentence to you. What's the first thing that springs to mind?
Well, that he had a large metal foot.
Mm-hmm. Something that had come off the Iron Giant or something like that.
Or an AT-AT.
There's a big old AT-AT foot in the middle of the A142 out near Soham. I had imagined there was like a statue foot or something like that. I thought this was a much better story. And that's quite a headline that makes you want to read further. It draws you in. So it obviously sells the paper. Let me go on to read about it. A motorist who struck a large object on the A142 near Soham on March the 1st had a lucky escape. Police attended a call from a member of the public at 8:30 p.m. and found a large metal foot, which would usually be used to stabilise vehicles lining the road. And It immediately loses its sort of magic, this story there, because I imagine this is probably one of the sort of things they'd put underneath a lorry trailer to prop it up when it's not on the rig, or something you'd perhaps have that extends out from a tipper or a crane to help stabilise it. And then all of a sudden the story becomes boring because you can conceive how this thing would end up on the A142. Yeah. Like I said, it was a much better story when I thought it was, like you said, a chunk of an AT-AT or something lying in the middle of the road. Thankfully, no one was hurt during the incident, said a police spokesman. It serves as a reminder to all road users to keep their eyes open to road debris and to ensure that any loads they may be carrying are well secured. Maybe it was that AT-AT that was getting manufactured, getting transported around.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a link here. Who knows?
The missing link is probably the leg and the body.
Yeah. Well, you can probably assemble yourself out of wreckage you find on the A142. Interesting in that it was on the road and that nobody cleared it. I have a problem with carrier bags on the road. Somebody once gave me a piece of advice that if you see a carrier bag on a road, the badass in you is instinctively wants to drive straight through it because it's just sitting there in the road. It's sort of like, you know what I mean? It's one of the things, if there's a button, you've got to push it. If there's a carrier bag in the road, you've got to drive through it. Of course, that's ridiculous. If you ever see a carrier bag lying in the road, you should avoid it because somebody's probably put a brick in it knowing that you'll try and do that.
Yeah, and it's like the American movies when you see a guy with a trolley full of cans crossing the street.
You know how it's going to end up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need some more shout-outs in that, don't we?
Well, it's a good job we can edit. I don't know, have you got anyone you want to give a shout-out to?
No.
We can shout out to Chuck Berry. I mean, there's something you mentioned yesterday.
Yeah, could do.
Yeah. I can't bother to put his music in.
Okay, mate.
All right, then. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
I'll give you some Johnny, you be good. All right. Deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, well back up in the woods among the evergreens, stood a log cabin made of earth and wood. Well, lived a country boy named Johnny B. Good. Never learned to read and write so well. He could play a guitar like a ringing a bell. Go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 go. Johnny be good. They carry his guitar in a gunny sack, go sit beneath the tree by the railroad track. Oh, land, you never see him sitting in the shade, strumming with the rhythm like the driver made. We were passing by, they would stop and say, oh my, that little country boy can play. Go, 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 go. I said go, 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 Johnny be good. Mother told her someday you'll be a man. You'll be the leader of a great big band. Many people coming from miles around. Hear you playing music when the sun go down. Maybe someday your name will be back in life saying, Johnny be good tonight. Go, go, go.